Hi everyone. Thank you so very much for joining in wherever you are watching. Okay, so we'll be starting all over from start to where we stopped in the last class. We'll make this one shorter and more practical due to the challenges we faced last week. So from now henceforth, based on the decision made by the management and myself, we will be going with pre-recorded videos. Um, More details about this will be sent to you via email. Okay, thank you so much. So Microsoft 365 for IT administrators, everything you need to know in real life. It is not rocket science when people hear about Microsoft 365. The first thing that comes into their minds is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you know, the Office 365 suite, which is actually cool. But in this class, we'll be looking at the IT administration of Microsoft 365. Okay, so we'll be looking at the backend and how to administer it. So for us to get there, we'll have to start from the roots of Microsoft 365. And that is exactly what we'll be focusing on in today's class. 90% of what you will be taught here is definitely what you will see in real life. So it's very good for you to pay attention. Thank you. On your marks, get set, and let's go. So we'll start with what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet, enabling faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. So simply put, cloud computing is the utilization of computing resources over the internet. So what this means is that you can utilize computing resources from a remote location, and that remote location is called the cloud. So the cloud provider, for example, Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, and all of those, they get a very big building. They put in computing resources. They put in your computer servers in parts. You have your end user PC. You have your networking. You have your storage. So they put all of this in a building called a data center. So naturally, in the physical sense of it, you would go to the market, a computer market. You'll purchase a server from a computer vendor. You can also purchase an end user PC like a laptop, and you bring it to your house or you take it to your computer room, wherever that is located, could be in your office or at home, and you set it up. You make sure it has a very good cooling system. You make sure you have, if it is a server, you need a server administrator to always administrate the server. You also need a technician just in case if something goes wrong. Technician would always come around to fix it. So that's how it works in real life. Same goes with networking. In real life, you bring multiple systems together. You call a networking engineer. They bring a LAN cable. They bring an internet connection, and they put all of these computers over that internet connection or over the LAN cable so that they can share what computing resources such as media files and all of that. Okay? So the same thing goes for storage. You have your inbuilt computer storage, which is usually your drive C, right? And that houses your operating system and other files that you have on that PC. You can decide to purchase extra internal or external storage, which is actually called a hard drive, an external hard drive, or an internal hard drive, depending on what you want to use, it for. So you go to a store and you purchase it, and you plug it to your computer, and it is ready for use. Okay, so that is exactly how it happens in the real physical world. But in the real cloud world, what happens is that the cloud vendor already have all of this put together, stored up in a building called a data center. And you, being a subscriber or an intending subscriber, you go to them. They actually created a portal. For example, there is no way you can travel all the way. Let's just use America as an example. The building is actually located in America. It's located in South Africa, located in some part of the Europe, and scattered all over the world. And sometimes it's not really ideal for you to travel all the way to get connected to these computing resources. So what did the cloud provider do to help salvage the situation? They created a portal, right? Like a website. Most people who are not so technical savvy would understand what a website is. So in that website, you can actually connect to any of the resources that you are purchasing. So how do you purchase these computing resources? Just like we mentioned, you have your end user PC, your server, your network, and your storage. How do you purchase it from a cloud vendor? So what you need to do is you need to create an account. Once you create an account on that website built by the cloud vendor as a portal, as an intermediary between you and the resources that they have created and put on their data centers, right? You create an account. After creating this account, what do you need to do? You now decide, I need a Windows 10 PC. So the cloud vendor already put a preset configuration for you, and they already have given you the opportunity to choose the specifications of what you want. So let's say I want a Windows 10. So I can either go with a preset configuration, which means that the cloud has already put together a Windows 10 with a 2 gig RAM, for example, and a 127 HDD, right? That's the hard drive. Let's just assume. So all you just need to do is to click on that preset configuration and then you create it. Don't worry, we'll see how we can create that process. Or you decide to go from scratch and create it one after the other. So you can go and choose a PC, popularly known as a virtual machine on Azure or in Azure. Okay? So you search for virtual machine and you click on it, and then you can now start creating, or you put together all the resources you need, like the RAM, the operating system, and every other thing that you need to create this virtual machine. It could be a server as well, like a Windows 2016 server or a Linux server. Okay? Same with the networking. Let's say you want to have multiple systems or multiple virtual machines created for you in the cloud using the portal. So you'll definitely need these virtual machines in most cases to get connected together so that they can share resources. So what do you need to do to achieve that? You need to create a network. So as soon as you are done creating this network, you can now put together what? The compute, the networking, and the storage all together to create a virtual machine. Now, you can decide to create a storage account separately, completely different from the one that you use for your virtual machine. We'll see all of that quickly so that you would understand, okay? But after we are done discussing all of this. So basically, or simply put, you can actually access all these computing resources from the comfort of your home or anywhere in the world. And you can access them over the internet using the portal or the website created by this cloud vendor. Okay? So, what are the benefits of cloud computing? Just as it is mentioned here, enabling faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. So because you can access all of these resources and more, just with a click of a button, you can actually innovate You can think and put in quality time in, building up your application or your system. Why? You have so much of these resources available to you over the internet without you going to the market, purchasing these things from a vendor, coming back to set it up. And when you discover that one server is not enough for your request, you go back again to that vendor. It saves you a lot of time because just at the click of a button, you created all of this. So it gives you the opportunity to innovate faster. Now, flexible resources has to do with the fact that you can scale up and down, you can scale in and out with cloud computing. So what does that mean? It means that whenever you are experiencing, high requests, or whenever you experience you are at the top peak of your time, that is using Jumia as a point of contact to other e-commerce websites. So on a regular day, Jumia receives just 10 or 200 requests as an example on a regular day. And when Jumia decides to give out discount through its Black Friday program, automatically the users skyrockets from 100 to 1,000. So how can there one server that receives only 1 or 100 requests take in 1,000 requests? So that becomes almost impossible, right? So what will Jumia do? Jumia will have to go back to their vendor and get more resources, get more servers, right? Get more networking and more storage in order for them to be able to accommodate 1,000 requests during their high peak period. Okay? Now, what happens after Black Friday is done? They go back to 100 requests and 10 servers, for example, which was what they used for their Black Friday to receive 1,000 requests, becomes idle because it is actually just one server that could take in that 100 requests. And most of the time, even if the requests are being shared across the servers, most of the time, the multiple servers become idle. And we all know what happens whenever an electronic system becomes idle. It leads to what? Electronical damage. So, with cloud computing, you do not need to worry about, we are not on our high peak period, so we cannot service and maintain the servers we have. We have to take it off, or we give it out on auction, right? Either you auction it or you take it back to the vendor, which is actually almost impossible, but it's very possible for auctioning, but it's going to lead to a loss. Okay? So with cloud computing, all this that I've explained is being handled by the vendor. So anytime you get to your, top or high peak period, or with a click of a button, your virtual machines can scale in and out or up and down. Okay? So if your virtual machines are scaling up and down, it means instead of you using 8 gig RAM, you now went for a bigger size. That's a 16 gig RAM, just with a click of a button. And if your virtual machines are scaling in and out, is instead of you using one server, you are now using multiple servers. Okay? Like 10, just with a click of a button. And same goes for the storage. Instead of you using just a 500 gig storage, you can go for 2 terabytes. Okay? So that is the benefits of cloud computing when it has to do with flexible resources. Now, the word economies of scale means that because of everyone, or not just you, but multiple people are sharing a server or sharing a computing resource. An example is a server or a networking and a storage. Because more people are in demand of these resources, it therefore reduces the price. So economies of scale simply means that as more people, go for cloud computing, it brings down the price because it's all about a shared resource. Okay? In most cases. So remember, this is not a cloud computing deep dive. It is just for non-technical people or people who are technical but are not so aware of the cloud computing concept. So I move down to the next slide, which is our cloud computing deployment models. The first one is the private cloud. The private cloud is whereby an organization physically goes and purchases computing services like servers, user PCs, networking, storage, and house them themselves. So they go, just like I mentioned earlier, they get a house or a building called a computer room, and they put in all of these resources properly connected together, properly aerated, and it now becomes what? A data center, a mini data center or a large data center, right? So that is a private cloud. Now, the organization is responsible for operating the services they provide, meaning that if they have the servers, they will have to maintain those servers. If they are rendering services using those servers, like hosting websites, they are responsible of maintaining the infrastructure and the environment that website is actually being hosted. It does not provide access to users outside of the organization. So what does this mean? This is actually a benefit for most people, which is the major reason some sensitive organizations go for private cloud, in the sense that they do not want their sensitive information to be out there in the public, so they host it in their building. Okay? So if something is in your building, for example, if your TV is in your house, you are certain that no outsider can operate it at will. Okay? So you are responsible for maintaining the TV, and everything, the programs that's in the TV is actually private to you. Okay? Except you call someone to watch with you, right? So organizations like the financial organizations and some government organizations, they actually go for private cloud. Everything, their infrastructure is housed within their organization. Okay? They do not want to put in any sensitive information in a public cloud, which is actually a shareable resource platform. So let's go to the public cloud. The public cloud, an example, is what we just talked about, which is Azure, Microsoft Azure, or Amazon AWS, or Google Cloud, and all of that. They also provide private cloud services, okay? They can, instead of you sharing resources with other subscribers, they can decide to dedicate a space for you within their environment, and they say, okay, this building and the computing resources inside this building, for example, is for A, B to C bank. Okay? But of course, you should expect that that's definitely going to be expensive, right? So the most popular service they render is actually the public cloud, whereby we have multiple subscribers, they share computing, they share storage and networking, right? So it is actually much more affordable and flexible. So Mr. A can decide to demand for 3 servers from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and go back to 1 server from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And Mr. B can decide to do the same thing from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So everything is actually shareable and scalable, which is very good. You can access this via a network connection. I talked about a website. Using a layman language is actually a portal. You can go ahead and access all of these computing resources via a network connection. You can decide to say, okay, I do not want to access them via an internet connection. I want to go for a VPN, something that is more private to me. For those who do not understand what a VPN is, in our coming class, hopefully, I should be able to explain it in details. But just understand this. A VPN is a private connection separate from your internet that is in the public. Okay? So it is private and it actually forms a level of encryption of your data. Okay, so people who are skeptical about accessing resources via the public internet due to cyber crimes, they go for using VPN. Okay, so the beautiful thing about public cloud is that the hassle for you to go and get a building, which is expensive, get 247 electricity, which is expensive, to get an electrician, a technician, a service administrator, to keep watch on your infrastructure is actually taken away from you and is being managed by the cloud provider. So this is why most organizations are actually going for what? Public cloud. So let me not say most, let me say organizations these days are actually going for public cloud because it just takes away the work of, everything that I've explained so far, and they get to push all the responsibility to the cloud provider to maintain it for them at a very, very affordable rate. So for Azure, is actually paid exactly how you use, right? So it's called pay as you go. So for example, if you purchase a server worth $100, if you should use, that's a server worth $100 per month. If you should use just 6 hours out of 30 days, you will not be charged $100. You will be charged what that 6 hours is when it comes to the ratio of 30 days. Okay? So you are paying as you use. So let's say you purchased it this month and you did not use the computer on the server till the next 3 months. Your money is still going to be there and you can go ahead and use it anytime. As soon as it is done hitting that 30 days, you would have to resubscribe. So that is exactly what pay as you go means. Okay? So that is exactly what a private cloud is. Now, a hybrid cloud is a combination of a public cloud and a private cloud. Okay? So it allows applications to run in the most appropriate location. So I would say some organizations love using the hybrid cloud, still on finance and government organization, in the sense that it is very flexible. So they decide to say, okay, our sensitive information stays with us in our data center, which is actually our private cloud. And anything that is less sensitive, we can go ahead and push it out there to the public cloud. So they can have regular users have their PCs on the public cloud, and they can have VIP users, for example, the CEO, the CTO, host their PCs on their own private data center. Okay, because your CEO, your COO, your CTO, these are what we call priority accounts and are likely to be hacked, by cyber criminals if proper care is not taken. So this can be hosted on a private data center, while every other person who is not so sensitive can be hosted on a public cloud. So I'm using computer systems because it is very relatable to most of us who are not so technical. Okay? So it can be any other thing, not just a compute or, a computer. It could be something else. It could be a storage. It could be files, right? But we all understand what computer is, so that's why I used the computer. So the ideal situation is having a hybrid cloud, if you would ask me. It just gives me the flexible, the flexibility that I need to run my applications, my workloads, or my compute services anywhere. I could decide where to put them. Okay? So just a recap, our cloud deployment models are what? Public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. So you can see the comparison here. So for the public cloud, no capital expenditure to scale up. In the sense that you don't need to be running up and down to look for more, infrastructure to buy from a vendor and setting them up. These have been handled by the cloud providers. So remember, scaling up means you are adding more capacity. For example, if you purchased an 8 gig RAM and you decide that you need a 16 gig RAM system because an 8 gig RAM can no longer carry your workloads, In the cloud, you can decide to change it there and then. You don't need to go to the vendor to uncouple your system and start putting in additional 8 gig RAM to make it 16. Just with the click of a button, you have increased the size of your virtual machine, and the term is called scaling up. Okay? As opposed to scaling in and out. Okay? Which means you are increasing the number of computers or you are reducing the number of computers. That is what scaling in and out means. Okay? So you can see that no capital expenditure is needed to scale up. Applications can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned. Organizations pay only for what they use. For private cloud, hardware must be purchased for startup and maintenance. We've said that over and over again. Organizations have complete control over resources and security. We've said that, which is actually the benefit. Organizations are responsible for hardware maintenance and updates, which is kind of a hassle. It's like a stress, okay? But they want to do that. Hybrid cloud provides most flexibility in the sense that you have to choose. So for me, the ideal situation is to have a hybrid cloud. No matter how small you have a private cloud, you can always have a public cloud. So it balances the equation on where you choose to create your virtual machines, where you choose to host your application and other workloads. Okay? So these all together is what you call the cloud deployment models. So we're going to stop here and I'm going to show you what it looks like, everything that I've said, okay, at a very simple term. So let's hop in to Microsoft Azure and see we're actually viewing the website. It's appropriately referred to as a portal, but for people who are not so techy or tech savvy, this is the website. So this website is the access portal for Azure resources. That is, Microsoft created this portal so that you can access the cloud resource that you create. Okay? So let's go ahead and see the resources that we have and how we can create one of them. So you can see we have a virtual machine. A virtual machine can either be an end user PC or a server. We have a storage account. We have different types of storage accounts, just as we have in the physical world. We have the hard disk. We have the regular blob storage. We have the file shares and all of that. But do not worry. Just understand that this is the storage account. Okay? This is the virtual network. Remember what networking is when you bring 2 or more PCs together over the internet or over a LAN cable, for those who have seen when they are connecting 2 PCs or 3 PCs or 4 PCs together, right? So you see them dragging LAN cables with their RJ45, their LAN testers and all of that. Just by, clicking on this and creating this, that whole process of, dragging the LAN cables from here and there, you have created a fully functional network. And through this network, virtual machines can be created from it, and then they can connect together. Okay? They can be connected together. So we're going to use an example, and we're going to create a virtual machine. And you'll see what it means. So instead of going to a vendor out there to purchase a server or to purchase an end user PC, the money you're going to pay, the money to transport it, the money to start implementing and configuring it, you can just do that at the comfort of your house. So let's go ahead and create one of the resource, and we are going to choose a virtual machine. If you're just logging into Azure, there is a 100% chance that you will not see all of this highlighted here. Okay, so this could be plain. All you just need to do is to search here and say virtual machine or a virtual network or any of the resource that you want to create. You can also type storage account. You see? So we will create a virtual machine. And we'll create a regular user PC so that you would understand, the concept. So remember I told you about a preset configuration that Microsoft puts together so that if you do not want to start from the scratch, you can just go for this preset configuration. Okay, so there is an option for the dev test environment, that's a non-critical environment or production environment. Okay, so for the dev test environment, you can see it has just boot diagnostics. It doesn't have high availability, neither does it have an Azure backup. Okay, but for the production, which is our default, it comes with all of these. So we can go ahead to scroll down and see, okay, do I need just, a simple PC that has just 14 gig RAM or 16 gig RAM, or a fairly fairly accommodating PC of just 8 to 4 gig RAM, which is what most of us actually know. I would always suggest you create a 16 gig RAM, which is what I use, which is actually, fair enough for an IT person. So what we can do, we will not go for the preset configuration because most of the things have been put together for us. We'll go to the regular virtual machine so we can create it from the scratch. So before we go there, I want you to see what we have here. So you can see I have a lot of virtual machines here, right? You can see the subscription, which is my account type. You can see the resource group. You can see the location. And you can see the status. Just one is actually running. I actually created this for the demo. So you would see the rest, they're actually stopped. They are deallocated. Okay, so you can see the public IP, the disks they have, and the update status. So you can see that with just one physical PC that I have, I can access 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 virtual machines, even more than 6 actually. I can actually connect to 7 virtual machines from just one physical virtual machine. So from just one physical PC, I can connect to 7 other virtual machines. So let us go ahead and create one so you can see how it looks in the real life, right? So let's go ahead and we'll pick up the first option. Okay, so the first thing you see is the basic configuration. So what do you have here? You have our subscription, just like your DSTV subscription, right? You create an account with DSTV, and once you create an account with DSTV, you select or you pay for a subscription. So this is the subscription I want to use. It's a pay-as-you-go subscription. And then you choose a resource group. A resource group is like a container or a folder where you arrange all your cloud resources. So I can create just one resource group to house over 10, 20, 30 virtual machines, storage accounts, and all of that. Or I can create 3, 4, just for orderliness sake, and also to ensure communication between these resources as long as they are in the same network. Okay, so just having at the back of your mind that a resource group in Azure is a folder or a container where you arrange all your cloud resources. So I can decide to create a brand new one and I can call it Cloud Blazor, but I've already created it. So if I click on create to create it, but because I've already created it earlier, I can just come over here and select it. So you see, then I can go ahead and choose a name. The name of this PC will be called Cloud. Let me call it Cloud Blazor. Cloud Blazor 1. Okay, so it's saying I've already created a virtual machine for this demonstration before with this name. So let me just call it Cloud Blazor. And then I choose where I want my virtual machine to be hosted. Okay, I want it to be created in South Africa. And remember, the location closest to you works better for you. Why? Because of latency. The farther you go, the slower you can connect to the virtual machine. So what are the countries that are closer to Nigeria? We have South Africa, we have Europe, so we can select from these locations. Okay, so you can see we have so many locations. So these locations, right, they are where the Remember the building I talked about where the computing resources are actually inside? Now, these are the locations for them. That building is called what? A data center. All right. So another word for a data center in Microsoft Azure is called availability zone. Okay. So I want you to have that at the back of your mind. So when you see availability zone, it means a data center as well. That building we are talking about. So I go with the one closest to me. I just want to assume South Africa North is close to me. Okay. Then you leave this as default, and availability zone is where I want it to be. For now, since it's just a test environment. If I want it to be a virtual machine skill set or availability set, then remember when we talked about scale in and scale out. Okay, that is exactly what this virtual machine skill set will do. So if I select this option, right, it's going to create a virtual machine skill set within this availability options. But we want to keep this simple and we'll go back to just one building. So this is going to be in that availability zone. Okay, so we can choose up to 3 if we want, but for the demonstration of this class, we'll just leave it as 1. Okay, so I want it to be in a data center and I want it to be in zone 1. So if you have enough money, you can click on all these zones. You can click on all these zones and you know it will be more expensive, but it's actually making your virtual machine more available, because just in case there is a natural disaster, let's say an earthquake or a fire outbreak, destroys one of the data centers, you still have your workloads available for you in another data center. Okay, so you can choose up to 3, but I don't want to do that. This is just for test, so 1 is okay. So you leave every other thing the same. This is a security type called Trusted Launch Virtual Machines. You just leave it like that. And then we come over here to image. And for this image is where you get to choose the operating system. So you can see this is an Ubuntu server. I don't want to create a server. I want to create an end user PC. So you can see you have Windows Server 2019, Windows 11 Enterprise, and Windows 10. So I'll go for Windows 10. You can actually go to see all images, and all the images will actually be displayed for you. That's all the operating systems in a layman term. So I go ahead and scroll down. I leave everything as they are. Then I come over to size. The bigger the size, the more expensive. So this is the one I've chosen. I just want 2 virtual CPUs and an 8 gig RAM. So it's $78.84 per month. You can decide to go for a bigger size, a 16 gig memory, that's a 16 gig RAM with 2 virtual CPUs, and it's going to cost $122 per month. Okay, so remember I told us it is a pay-as-you-go plan. So even if you use this for 3 days, your money is still going to, it's not going to get exhausted, even if you don't use it throughout that month. It's still going to be available for you to use until it has covered that 30 days. However, there are some resources on Azure. Even if you whether you turn the virtual machine on or off, it still keeps getting charged. Example is your virtual disk, okay, where the operating system is. So even if we create this virtual machine and say we're not going to touch it, we're just going to leave it turned off until the day we want to use it, Azure will still keep deducting some of the monies because they are helping you, keep your virtual disk, which is your operating system disk, right? It's not going to be so expensive in the sense that it's going to take all your money, but some of the monies will actually be taken away. So you can visit Azure Calculator. Okay, you can just go over here and type Azure Calculator. This is where you get the price of everything, so you know how you can plan your infrastructure. Okay, so that's not where we're going, but I just wanted to chip that in. So we can now scroll down and give our virtual machine a name. So I can call it Cloud. The name of my virtual machine is Cloud. I give it a password. I give it another password, right? Let me just to be on the safe side. Okay. So we give it a password. So this is the credentials. We would use the username and password to log into that virtual machine. Some organizations do not do this. They use another means just to save them from cyber attack. But for this testing, this is the basic means of connecting to your resources. You can even secure your resources and still use a username and password. So it's always good for you to understand that. So it brings us down to this port. You can see we have our inbound port. What this means is how are we going to connect into the virtual machine? And that's why it's an inbound port. Okay, so for you to be able to connect to that virtual machine from the comfort of your zone through your physical PC, you need a port called RDP. Okay, it's Remote Desktop Protocol, and it is 3389. So you always need this port to be able to log into it if it is a Windows machine, and if it is a Linux machine, it's going to be SSH 2022. SSH 22, okay? So for now, we just keep it simple. There are other means which we can log in, but we keep it simple. Go ahead and click on this checkbox for the license, and whether you have the license or not, just go ahead and click on that checkbox. So you know what happens when you do not have a license. You cannot, do some customizations like change the way your PC desktop is going to look and all of that. Okay, but the PC is still going to be functional. So do not bother yourself. Just go ahead and click on that checkbox. So we are where we have the disk. By default, Microsoft gives you a premium SSD, which is the fastest, just to ensure that you have, an accurate speed and you have copies of your information across some data centers. But we don't want to go ahead to use this because it's much more expensive, and this is just a test. So we can go ahead to use the standard HDD or a standard SSD. So usually I use the standard SSD. You can go ahead and read through so that you can understand in what scenarios you can use this, right? So you can read this later. It's actually obvious what they are for. So I go ahead and select SSD, right? I leave everything as default. I go to networking. So remember the networking we talked about, right? This has been created for us by default, and just in case you did not see this created for you by default, probably you must have reached your capacity, because yes, there's a certain amount of virtual networks you can create. So you can go ahead and delete some and create a new one. Okay, now this virtual network is very important. It is like the physical network. Anytime I want to create additional virtual machines and I want them to be reachable by this PC, I want them to share similar media files. Okay, I want them to be able to communicate, to see each other, to talk to each other. I can ping one from another, and likewise, I want them to share resources, right? So what do I do whenever I'm creating a new virtual machine? If I want them to see each other, if I want them to be in the same network, there are two things I need to think about. The next virtual machine I'll be creating should be in the same resource group, that's in the same folder or container. And secondly, they should be in the same network. So if I'm creating a new one and I see this networking and it's a different name because it has been created for me again, so all I need to do, because I'm creating it in the same folder, all I just need to do is to click on this drop down and I'll be able to see this Cloud Laser network, and I will choose it. As soon as I choose it, the new virtual machine will also be on this same network. So you see, just with the click of a button, you're not carrying LAN cable, RJ45, and all of that, right? With a click of a button, you have done it. So you can see it has created a public IP default subnet for us. So click on Management. So this is a beautiful feature created by Azure. Sometimes you create a virtual machine and you forget. Okay, so with this auto shutdown time policy, it helps you shut the computer down at a specified time. So I want to specify this to 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and change it to West Central Africa, which is our time zone. And this is 1900, which is 7 p.m. So every 7 p.m., if I forget to shut down my virtual machine, automatically it's going to shut down. This email address, you can put your email address in there. It's going to send you a notification like 15 minutes before it shuts down this virtual machine, and it's going to give you an opportunity to expand the time. Just in case you are working and it's almost 7 o'clock and the virtual machine is about to shut down by itself, it's going to give you a notification, and you can choose to extend the time for an hour, 30 minutes, and all of that. Okay, so you put in your email address here and leave every other thing as the same. Then you go to monitoring, and this has already been configured for you. This will monitor the way your virtual PC is being booted up. So just in case there is a problem, you will be able to see it if it is booted up or if there is an error. Okay, so this is actually configured for us by default. So you click on advanced. We don't need to deploy any extensions. We click on next, which is tags. Tags is just to put a tag on your resource so that it's easy for you to search and all of that. So if I want to put a tag, I can put my company name. I can put Mittel as my company name, and I can put the department as sales. Okay, so anytime I'm searching for sales virtual machine, it's going to come up. Okay, so I do review and create, which is the last session of creating any resource in Azure. So review and create means Azure is going to review everything that you have selected. Okay, so if everything you selected is appropriate, Azure is going to give you a green banner and tell you validation passed. And you're going to give you, just an overview of what you'll be paying for per hour. So I'm going to be paying for, less than $1 per hour for this virtual machine, which is very affordable. So the next thing you need to do is what? Click on create. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on create. Though I had already created one, but I want you to see from the scratch. Okay, so let's go ahead and see. Let's go ahead and click on create. So you see initializing deployment. So what this means is that, remember we chose South Africa North, that destination we chose, okay? This virtual machine is now being assembled, is now getting created in that data center in South Africa. And I'm over here in Nigeria. What a beautiful convenience, isn't it? Okay, so it says deployment in progress. You can see it's creating the network. It's creating everything that I need. Okay, so let's just wait. So after the virtual machine, while we're waiting for it to get created, after it is done created, you can see here, it's called a template. So let's say you're working in an organization and you were informed to create 10 virtual machine or 100 virtual machine of the same, of the same type, specifics and all of that. All you just need to do is to copy the template, and using scripting, you can go ahead and create 10 of this virtual machine at the same time using scripting. But that's outside the scope of our class. It's not a cloud computing, in its detail. It's a cloud computing class, but not for Azure, but for Microsoft 365. So let's just wait. It's getting deployed. Have it. Our resource has been completely put together. It has been deployed in the region we selected. So we go to resource. So here you go. This is our Cloud Blazor PC. So how do we connect to the Cloud Blazor PC? Excuse me. If you're using a Windows PC, you can go ahead and, search for RDP. If you type RDP, your remote desktop connection is going to show. is going to pop out here. But if you're using a Mac, you can always come over here and click on Connect. And when you do so, you come over here, you ensure that it's selected to public, and then you download the RDP file. This step works for both Windows and Mac, but specifically some MacBooks do not come with RDP. I haven't seen, I don't know about now, I'm a Windows user, so I haven't seen any that comes with RDP. I might be wrong, but I believe it doesn't come with RDP. So you can just download it and you will see the RDP file over here. So I'm using a Windows, so all I just need to do is copy my public IP because I want to access it over the internet. And I type RDP and our remote desktop connection application pops up. I paste the IP address and I click on connect. And it's going to ask me for the username and password. Who remembers the username? Cloud. Who remembers the password? Obviously no one, because it's private to whoever created it. Okay, so you can choose to click on remember me so you don't do this process anymore, but just for the training sake, I'll go ahead and click on OK. And it brings up a digital certificate, and all I just need to do is to select yes. And it is connecting, and that is your beautiful brand new Windows 10 PC. So you can see it's initiating. This is exactly what it looks like whenever you purchase a physical end user PC. Isn't that so great? So the same thing you can do with the cloud without any hassle, just from the comfort of your home. Just imagine you're an IT administrator and you're told to create 100, PCs, virtual machines, for your organization, right? You don't need to rely on going over to the market to purchase physical PC. You can just go ahead and create a virtual PC. Using the scripts, the templating I showed you there, you can automate it, which is outside the scope of this class, by the way, automate it to create up to 10 virtual machines. So let's go ahead and click on accept. So remember this, a brand new PC is born. A brand new virtual machine is born. So just like your physical Windows 10, you can do everything. You can download applications, you can install it, and this virtual machine has been created for you in South Africa, and you're accessing it using the Azure portal via the internet. And it's a beautiful thing to know. Okay, so there we go, and there you have it. We'll call it a day today, and I definitely would see you in our next class, pre-recorded actually. And I'm really hoping and excited to see your questions. Go ahead and ask me some questions. Anything you do not understand, ask me. I will be willing to answer them as quickly as I can. So we will be talking about CAPEX and OPEX in our next class. And the reason we're taking our time to do all of this is so that you do not just know the technical side of it, but you know the theoretical part of it, okay? Which is the consulting part. Without the consulting knowledge, no one is going to entrust the organization for you to start creating stuff. And by the way, you will not be creating an Azure virtual machine because this is not an Azure class. It is a Microsoft 365 class, so the credentials that will be sent to you for your labs will be for Microsoft 365 and not Azure. The reason we went ahead to create all of this is so that you have a visual understanding to understand what we have been talking about all this while, about cloud computing, cloud resources, deployment models, and all of that. Okay, so I believe that I have been able to convince you and not to confuse you so far about cloud computing. So without much ado, we call it a day. Do have a lovely evening. Take care. See you on Wednesday. Bye for now.